So please welcome Erin Kinney to the show. Welcome, Erin.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
You're so welcome. All the way from North Carolina, Asheville,
Yep, that's right.
the mountains. I was telling before we hit record, I was telling Erin that I had just was in Newton, North Carolina, but um, it's funny how I never have been there, and now all of a sudden, everyone that I talk to, I just talked to someone else that lives there. But anyway, welcome.
Yeah.
And we had a mutual friend, Michelle Soro, introduce me to Erin, and I started listening. Everybody knows how much I love to get to know the person before I have them on and get to see their beautiful face. And I was studying Erin and understanding the magic of why Michelle wanted me to learn about Erin, and just a beautiful soul that is on this earth to do her her gift and what she's here to do. And I want to have you explain, Erin, like what kind of where you came from and why are you interested, and what attracted you to become, I mean, I know underneath your name it said life coach, embodiment coach, ceremonialist. That was
Yeah,
the three things
that's
that are
yeah.
flying into my head. But
Yeah.
can you take us on a journey of how your life was and why you're so interested in what you do right now?
Yeah. I would love to. Well, such a winding road, as life is at times, and yeah, it was interesting. Well, as far as yes, what you read was yes, a life coach and embodiment teacher and ceremonialist. It's so funny. You have a business card that says and. But those
I'm
are,
sure there's a lot more ands.
yeah, there's a lot of ands. But definitely three realms that I have been working in. I mean, really, where I would say the journey began in spirituality was probably when I was about 18 years old. It was actually when I moved here to Asheville, North Carolina, to the mountains. I had come up here camping, went out into the woods. My family was from North Carolina, but we always went to the beach, and I had never spent any time in the mountains. And we went and camped in the woods, and I fell in love with the trees. I fell in love with the woods, like being that deep in the woods. I had never experienced anything like that and was just hooked. And so I was living in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, and ended up moving up into the mountains. And there was something very, of course, very magical about being in nature, but also being in these particular mountains. I mean, they're the oldest mountains on the planet. And
Oh, huh.
yeah. So there's a lot of history here. There old Cherokee reservation here as well, and I just felt a really deep connection to this area, and that really. By, someone gave me a book. I think it was Way of the Peaceful Warrior by
Oh
Dan
yeah.
Millman.
I love
Yeah,
that
and I
book.
don't know, that book just changed my life, and I like read it in a day,
Huh.
and something woke up in me, and then little by little I met different people here, and I just started dabbling in spirituality, reading books, connecting with people, and um, met a couple of teachers here who did ceremony, who led Vision Quest and some different things, and just felt some kinship to that. And also being in this area, I felt something in my soul that was really calling to me that I didn't quite understand at the time. Um, and so I think it was more of the calling, or like a drawing into something that I didn't really know much about, but and didn't have an explanation, but was very drawn to. And so I guess you could say at a young age, at 18, I started sitting in ceremony with elders in this area, and just learning a very, very different way of living and relating than I came from.
Right.
And I mean, that started my journey, and then it was a very winding road, through the years and just through growing up. And but I always ceremony was one of the things that I always returned to. There was
Will you
something
explain to me that? Will you explain to me ceremony for
about
people
ceremony.
that are wondering?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, really, I think ceremony is gathering, to me, it was gathering in community, with an intention and a purpose. So it might just be coming together in what we would call heart circle, just to everybody to share what's on their heart. That's a simple way of explaining ceremony. But ceremony in the same way as ritual. So it's something that we would do often, like, once a month, or, there might be a particular ceremony, like a water ceremony, or, again, like they would do these vision quests where people would, go, community would gather together, people would go up into the woods and sit until you receive a vision. And people in the community would sit by the fire and, support the people who were questing in the woods. So, I mean, there's all different kinds of ceremonies. So, but for me at the time, at a young age, it was more coming together and sitting and, maybe gathering by a fire, and sharing tea and connecting and sharing what's on your heart, and then, offering support or receiving support from other people in community. So, if anything, I see ceremony as a way of, it's actually a, gathering, coming together with intention. Yeah. The
And
same
then the
ways you might
shop.
come to, I was going to say, it's the same way you might come together and gather for a potluck, but there's a little bit more intention with
But
it.
you
Yeah.
just grabbed those people were just you were gravitating toward people that were involved in all that. I mean, how did you create that environment?
I suppose so. I mean, I think it was happening on its own accord, but I just happened to connect with different people that were like, "Oh, you should come do this, or you should come meet this person, or try this." And everything at that time that I was drawn into felt like a yes. Just felt like a full yes. Also being young, 18, 19, 20, 21, you,
Right.
you kind of say yes to a lot of things because it's such an experiential time in our
Right.
lives. When we're trying to figure out who we are and what we're about. And I think sometimes may not be for everybody, but I think for me, I always knew there was more. There was
Mm-hmm.
more to life than maybe where I came from, or I was just in that exploration for something deeper, a deeper connection to my life and purpose and understanding of, this great mystery. And so I was always kind of drawn to that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I have a 17-year-old, so when you're talking about, finding, seeing what you're drawn to, and, finding your passions, and really like exploring and trying new things and seeing what lights you up, and,
Yeah.
and so I'm going through that right now. And as you speak, when I visualize you as 18 doing this, it's just, I guess, courage comes up, brave. Um, but also I feel like there's some, like in your soul, it's a remembrance,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
remembering that for some reason. It just, like
Yeah.
you've been in that before.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. That's it. You're tuning in. Yeah. You're tuning in. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I continue to return to ceremony. Did you ever read Braiding Sweetgrass? The book
No.
Braiding Sweetgrass? Yeah, it's really beautiful. Author
Oh, good.
Kimmer talks about how we do ceremony to remember to remember.
Hmm.
And in a way to remember who we are, we come together and share and, remember who we are as spiritual human beings. And maybe places where we get to share our heart or share our truth, which is also to me a part of remembering who we are, creating spaces like that where we can really express, who we are in our heart and in our souls. And I mean, you pointing to the soul is very important because that there is a knowing, right? And we can all experience that. For me in particular, I did have a knowing that there was more, that I was connected to something more, that I'm here to do something, that I'm here to whatever
Right.
that is. And I think because when I was in ceremony, it felt so familiar. There was this feeling of like, oh, I've been here before, or
Hmm.
um, being even here in these mountains, a feeling and a remembering that, perhaps I have been here before, you know,
Right.
in another lifetime, or another realm, as I like to call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me what your perspective on that. How do you see past lives and the time element that we are in this human body?
Yeah. Um, well, I see that. Sorry, my Siri keeps coming up on my. I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe it's the S's that I'm using. She's like, "What? What are you talking about?"
Oh, funny.
Um, yeah, I mean, I see. Let's see, putting this into words. I mean, I see that there's multiple possibilities of our life, and that even, well, I'll say this, I see everything as energy.
Okay.
So um, there may be other possibilities of me living, in
Right.
other timelines, other dimensions, other realms. But I see that everything is happening at one time.
Right.
So the personal work that I do, if I do energetic work or healing work that I do here in this body, in this life, I see that energetic work I'm also doing in all of these other realms and
Hmm.
other lifetimes, other timelines. Um,
You mean so, okay, I need to wrap my head around this. Okay, so when you are doing your healing work, your embodiment,
mhm. Like
you're doing
energetic
it right,
work. Yeah.
energetic
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You're doing it right here, like um, in this body as Erin. And what you're doing affects the other timelines where where your soul resides.
It can. Yeah, it
Okay.
definitely can. So if I'm healing something here, it's also healing in
Right.
all of those other realms. You may have heard the term, 7 generations before, 7 generations after.
Right.
So it's the work that I'm doing here is impacting that generationally. Um, yeah, in a sense, again, it's kind of hard to, conceptually put it into words, but the realm that I work in energetically is energetic capacity work. So it's about reclaiming yourself from all these different realms energetically.
Okay.
And so you could
Huh.
see it as like, say you have a memory of something or a past relationship or an event that happened in your life,
Okay.
um, that had a big impact, or someone you were in relationship with that you often got triggered, in something like that. Part of the work that I do now is going back into particular events and scenes and slowing those scenes down to see what is happening in that moment and seeing like what we're doing with our energy. Have you ever had the experience of um, have you ever had the experience of someone coming to mind or coming to, like, you're thinking about them or you have dreams about them?
Yes.
Kind of like a lot, like over, okay. Well, to me, that's an indication that there's energy that's still hooked into that person, um, on some energetic level.
Okay.
And so part of this is looking at where energy is still kind of hooked into in your timeline, and unhooking and reclaiming that energy in this lifetime.
Is that like cutting cords or
It doesn't really, I don't really believe in cutting cords. One of the
okay.
teachers I worked with, we talk about clearing. We talk
Okay.
about clearing, but not actually cutting cords, because we're all connected in this grand energetic web. So it's
Right.
really actually cleaning up and clearing the
Oh,
connection
okay.
to
I love
others.
that.
Yeah, I really like that approach too. And then, but this is actually, it is kind of like clearing energy, but you're actually reclaiming energy. Someone might see it kind of like soul retrieval, but it's not quite like that. You're reclaiming energy. If you imagine, um, coming into this life, you come into this life with all this energy, and then you have all these experiences, and your energetic body, your energy gets dispersed and hooked into people, right?
Right.
And you just imagine like you have your energy body, and then you have these like cords or plugs that just kind of plug in all these different
Right.
places that you think, oh, I never think about that person, they're not in my life, but actually it's still hooked there, some, in some form or fashion. So through a process called recapitulation, We go in and examine what's happening in those scenes. And then you get to learn a lot about how you work with your energy, like what you do with your energy, on a daily basis.
Give me an
Um,
example of that.
hmm. Well, you get to learn like most of the time in relationships, we often have this idea of what is happening, like what happened in a particular scene. Like you have an argument with someone and you imagine what's happening in that scene. Yeah. And you might think, oh, he said this and did that. And um, I'm just creating a hypothetical situation, but he was so mean, and I just got really angry and I walked out, or he got really angry and then he left the room and I don't understand why he was so upset, right?
Okay.
When we slow the scene down and we really look at like what's happening in your body, what's happening to your emotions, your pace of breath, what are the thought loops happening in your mind, and then you get to also experience like what's happening with them, how are you impacting them, what's coming up for them, how are they feeling, their pace of breath. You're slowing this down to the point where you get to see what's happening in that split second, that split second where they get really angry and they walk out of the room. So you get to see, and then you look and see what's happening with the energy. So an example might be one of the realms that I work in, or at least clients that I work with come to me to talk about power. And when we talk about power, we have this idea of like, well, what that may feel like, right? What
Hmm.
power actually is. But what I would do is have that person go in and look at these particular scenes in their life where they felt disempowered,
Okay.
and we would slow the scene down and then look at how this place of feeling disempowered could possibly be what we call a power move.
Hmm.
So, but it's not about physically what you're doing, although that can be part of it. It's actually what are you doing with your energy? The ways that we can manipulate. We manipulate with our energy, we manipulate with our words. There's, as humans, we have all different kinds of ways that we are sort of constantly vying for power, some sort of position of power. We all do it every day in some form or fashion.
Right.
Um, so that's an area or focus of work in that realm that I work on or work on with people. Yeah.
So when you're doing the clearing and you're slowing down the story and you're cluing into what's going on in your body, all the things.
Yeah.
And you're clearing it by doing what?
Well, at the end of the process, we do what we call a sweeping breath. And the sweeping breath is it's a sweeping to the left, to the right, inhaling, exhaling from right to left. It's just a very, very simple breath. But what you're doing then is you're pulling back any energy that is stuck there or hooked into the person in that particular scene. Could have been like, even as simple as a car crash and what happened in a car crash. Sometimes people experience a sort of separation, of energy or something still stuck, which is why people will still kind of circulate that same memory,
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again. So we retrieve the energy that's still stuck there. And then on the exhale, we're giving any energy that doesn't belong to us back.
Hmm.
Now, you imagine doing that over and over and over again with different scenes and different relationships in your life, especially uh, intimate relationships, because there's so much powerful energy and sexual energy, yeah,
Right.
that gets mixed up and exchanged and hooked and all that kind of stuff. Um, imagine how much more energy you reclaim.
Right. Huh.
Yeah.
You mean, so if people, it's like a draining of your energy. That's just, like that's in your life when you have
Mm-hmm.
when you say your plugs are all out in these different relationships that you've left your energy in.
Yeah.
Once you clear those, and take the plugs out, and that's what you're doing,
Yeah.
that their body is restored. They feel more powerful. They feel that, what is that?
You certainly can. I mean, I certainly did. Um, but also, the next level of practice is learning how to hold energy in the body. As humans, we're practiced and taught how to disperse energy all day long. And
Right.
one of the quickest ways we disperse energy is through internal dialogue. We're just you get caught into a thought loop and it's over and over and over again. So we disperse energy. We disperse energy
Mm.
sometimes through chatting, or um, we might disperse energy by social media, or different ways. But really what it is we're not grounded in circulating energy in our system. So we often talk about, and of course there can be physical things involved, but over time the depth of my work has shown me that there's more energy available than we can possibly imagine. And
Hmm.
it's really learning how to be in tune with it, which I believe humans used to be way more in touch with before the Industrial Revolution, or way before. Ancient civilizations understood this because they were more in tune with the earth and the cycles of the earth. And there was a deeper connection to what silence is. So
Right.
they were just so much more in tune with energy, and understood the flow of energy. And really I believe our natural state is in this you know overflowing of energy. It's just remembering, back to this, remembering how to circulate it in our systems. And then the next thing is learning how to direct the energy. Once you learn how to harness the energy of the universe,
Right. Well, that's what I'm
anything's
thinking. So
possible.
then what do you
Yeah.
do? Then how do you harness it?
Well, you're harnessing it by practicing, by practicing, like, receiving energy, doing the recapitulation process. Uh, you know, there's like certain exercises and movements that I do to feel the energy running in my system. And I also pay pretty close attention to how I feel, like on a daily basis, like throughout the day, when my energy is getting low. Like part of that's recapitulation. What was I just thinking? What was happening? What was going on? How did I disperse my energy? And I can recapitulate that very quickly, pull the energy back in. And then the deeper practice is learning how to hold the energy and circulate it.
Right. Well, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking because I'm very aware of my energy vibration. I know,
Yeah.
and I always am in check with myself, always.
Yeah.
And I'm usually, I start my day with the highest vibration. I do my routine, right? I
Yeah.
get myself, and I know it's just that's what I do. And so when I am throughout my day, and I know how to. I'm just I'm something's going through my head. So I'm like, okay, I do know how to harness my energy because I am so aware of if I drop one little bit, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder why that triggered me. And I'm aware and I
Mm-hmm.
bring it back up. I mean, I'm quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, I mean, if I, friends or people that I'm around or clients that I'm helping, that's not a normal thing. That's not, people don't understand why that triggered them. And now they're in the low realm of this low vibration. And it's so
Right.
hard. I mean, that's how I teach my girls. Like, you got to start here. And it's so much easier to start at this high level, this high vibration. I say be the thermostat, start here and recognize what's pulling you down. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very. I think how you're relating to it is similar. You're describing it as high and low, which I completely understand. Like what you mean by that. And my teacher usually would say to me, "Your energy's droopy." Like
Droopy.
it's such a funny word, but it was so great when he said it, and I was like, "Oh, you are right. Like, it's totally droopy." Um, I relate to droopy energy or clear, sober, and alert.
Okay.
It's about clarity of energy. There's the difference between the droopy, which is kind of caught up in the fog of everyday human life, being caught up in the head and all the things, and this kind of like, you know, a little
Like you're just going through the motions.
droopy, yeah, kind of going through the motions, sort of
Okay.
the Eeyore, not quite like Eeyore, but just sort of that droopy kind of energy where we're stuck in our habits, our patterns, our thought loops, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then what I hear in terms of what you call high vibration, I would call clarity of energy. Like my energy's
Yes.
clear,
Okay.
sober, alert. Um, there's an element of being connected to a silence,
Mm-hmm.
like a silence in oneself. and it's awake, it's alive.
Right.
That's a very, and to me, that the energy that I'm talking about is wild. It's
Wild.
wild. Yeah.
Tell me, what
Yeah.
do you mean by
Well, it's
wild?
wild. It's a clear, sober, and alert energy that's no different than a wolf in the wild. There's a clarity of energy. There's no thinking, there's no editing, there's no uh, second guessing, there's no thinking of what to say next. It simply is, yeah.
Right. Huh.
And it's awake, it's alive, it's alert.
Right. And I really have, no, I mean, I run in the morning and I see coyotes, so it's hard for me to reference it like a wolf. Like,
Right.
don't say that
Or
word.
coyote. It's the same.
I know that's like, no.
They're cousins, you know.
Right. So I don't like referencing those. But I love to um I'm trying to relate to, like, if I was going to come to you and I had like past trauma and I was really trying, and I'm trying to clear and get my, like, what would be my end result? My energy would be, like you said, clarity, like a wolf. That's where I'd need to go. Like, that's where you would get me to come to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the person. It depends on the intention, too,
Right.
like what you want. You know, I mean, essentially, yeah, that's probably the kind of space that I would hold.
Hmm.
Is for clarity of energy. If you are cycling the same traumatic events over and over and over again in your life, or it's impacting, like, we would probably explore, the energy that's stuck there, the energy that's still hooked there. Um, and then, see what happens in that reclaiming of energy, and, follow the energy on that, follow those particular threads, and see what you discover.
Right. What if you don't know where your energy is blocked, or you can't even recall a memory where you feel like it your energy is pulled in that direction? How do you get someone to go there?
Well, I mean, it's funny because sometimes I hear that, like, I'll hear that from, students, and even in the course that the teacher that I work with were teaching in. It's like, oh, I don't have any. Well, one thing I can hear often is like, I don't have any charge in any of those relationships. Like, I've cleared all that, I've cleaned all that,
Right.
and it's
That's what
usually
I'm
just like,
asking.
oh, okay, yeah,
Right.
So usually, like, no. I think you can imagine, through an entire lifetime, places where your energy got hooked. Even if it was, somebody that you weren't in a relationship with, you had a fantasy about, or there's just ways, like, energetically, we're constantly, hooking our energy and don't even realize it, along the way. Um, and usually, if you start with the list of, intimate partners, you always have there's usually something to return to me. It doesn't really matter, like, how much therapeutic work you've done. I mean, I had 25 years of therapy, and I still sat
Right.
down and I was like, all right, well, I got some work to do here, energetically. I tried to pretend like, oh, I never think of that person, or, there's, oh, that's fine, I healed from that, or I got through that. And then, but the proof is a little bit more. The proof is in the pudding once you get into the process. I mean, for me, and some people may be more sensitive than others, but for me, I started to actually feel more awake, more alive. And then I had, certain practices that I was doing. I had a practice to really connect to more of my wild self. And some of this is in the realm of embodiment, just from my,
Okay.
my history. But learning, like, I had a growl practice, learning how to, like, do a very deep sort of guttural growl, like in my womb or in my belly. And there's something about just the sound and the vibration I could feel clear, like my eyes getting clear, like my sight getting clear, just from making those sounds.
Huh.
And making the sounds, like, the more sound I make, usually when I'm making sound and I'm moving my body and I'm breathing deeper, I'm not thinking.
Right.
So those are ways that I also, like touch into that clarity of energy. So that in combination with, this practice of recapitulation and reclamation of energy, um, yeah, I mean, I definitely experience a clarity of energy that has stayed. It doesn't mean I don't still get caught in what you call as low vibration. It doesn't mean I don't still get caught in sort of the fogginess of day or habit and pattern and all those things that we get caught in. But it's easier for me to find that clarity than it
Right.
used to be. Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking now, like in a relationship, in a marriage, when you are, connected and there, you have a cord that's plugged in to
Mm-hmm.
your mate, to your partner. Um, and what if I'm trying to put it in the right words because I don't know, like they're low, they're what's the word? They're what's the word you
Droopy?
use? Droopy, and they get triggered a lot,
Yeah.
and you're not droopy, and you really hold on to your clarity, and you're like the wolf. Do you deal with partners like that to where you can bring them together so they are in alignment with each other? Is that another thing that you do, or is that you kind of can't work together? You have to make sure your intention is for your
I mean, I
own.
suppose people in a relationship could do that kind of process on their own, because I mean it is the recapitulation journey is a solo practice. It's your own journey, your own energy, your path. Um, Ways that you have related in the world, but that realm of relationship it's not a realm that I've worked in this process. It's very different, from the embodiment world. Um, but the way that I see it is, if you are doing your work, you're doing your energetic work, it does create a space for your partner to level up or step into what you might call as a higher energetic vibration.
Right.
And if you're doing your work, you're also getting really clear on what you do with your energy, you know, so in relationship to your partner. So you get to see your tricks and the things you do when you're not getting what you want or what you need, and how you're not being direct or clear. And then you get to see all of those tricks. And then once you start unveiling that, you still might do the tricks, but you're a little more aware. Or sometimes you don't, because you're not having to hook energy or do these things to feel in your power, is the best way to say it, because you have all of your energy. I mean,
Right.
really, ultimately, what I learned through that particular process and practice that I'm still doing and still learning about is that it became about my connection to source, my connection to spirit, my connection to what someone else may call universal energy, just
Hmm.
energy that's
Right.
available. That became the most important relationship in my life. And when I'm in relationship with that, and in that continuous flow of energy, everything tends to get better.
Right. Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
You're saying it to where I'm like, oh, that's why. Because like in our relationship with my husband, I know that since I've learned how to be like the wolf, um, it just comes to he if it's like he catches it and he's back up quick. It's like
Mm.
we keep each other level, and it's like it's a really cool place to be when you can um when I realize my energy is um I'm aware. I just have an awareness, and it's a reflection. I see a reflection of what I'm putting out, and
Mm.
him having that awareness, like, oh, it's not, we're not at the same place. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and we can impact each other.
Right.
I had an experience the other day, and it wasn't necessarily recapitulation, but I do I do acupuncture and I do chiropractic, craniosacral work. It's in the work that I do because I'm working with a lot of different people and working with energy. I do practice really good energetic hygiene.
Right.
So I came home from it was a acupuncture session where we did like a healing, or not a healing, a clearing. Actually, it was an energetic clearing that I do several times a year. And a couple days before, my I had felt what I had said to her. I call her my witch doctor. She's
Uh-huh.
awesome. Um, I had said to her, I was like, gosh, I feel really, I've been really tired. Like the other day I went down, laid down and took a nap, and I'm like, what is going on? But actually what I felt was I felt energy stuck, like it just wasn't moving. And so she helped
Mm-hmm.
me move it. And I just had a really rough couple of days. And when I came out of that session, I came home, my partner immediately was just like, you know, he noticed it and he got energy from it.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah.
he felt the energy, and like we walked in the kitchen and we were just kind of doing what we do, and I was like, I know, I'm like a completely different person, and I mean energy's
Huh.
flowing, I feel great. And he was, he got uplifted by it, by the flow. And sometimes what I feel can happen is where we are in a sense mirroring it, but it's almost like it's a remembering that happens, that clicks
Mm.
in, like our energy's flowing, just it's got this vibration. They're like, oh, I remember how to do that, right?
Yeah. Right.
Where, or the opposite of that is that we get into these old sort of karmic patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
as everyone does in relationship, of that, stems from childhood and how we relate, how we're relating to each other. And that can get kind of like heavy, and the energy can get dense, or we feel like we're sort of looping in something. But the difference between that and when the energy is just moving and flowing,
Right.
you're, I mean, you're in the present. John would call it, when we talk about being in the present, we would talk about this in embodiment work and relationship work. We would talk about love with no history.
Mm. I love
And
that.
when you're in that moment, you're in that present moment where the energy is clear and the energy is running, and it's free, and it's free of thought,
Right.
free of pattern, free of history. We're actually able to relate to
Right.
each other in a
Yes.
very clear place. Yeah.
But when you say present moment, because that's really one of the words I use a lot. And now I'm understanding because I was listening to John, and when we say John Wineland is one of the people that you work with, and that's who I've been,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what is his title? Like a relationship? What does he use as
That's a
his?
good question. I'm so not, it's so funny. I'm just not so tuned into titles for
Yeah, well,
people.
he's amazing. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
if anything, I was like, wow, listening to his YouTube videos were amazing. But, I'm listening to people in the audience talk about their relationships and being triggered and having all these needs and that aren't met and the frustration. And I don't have that. I kept listening going, gosh, I'm kind of, am I like, do I have no, am I just boring? But I like, have I just have this acceptance? I always believe like in the moment he doesn't have history. I look at him like, I look at that with I mean, I really do look at that with everyone. I don't
Mm,
hold a grudge. I don't have the judgment. I have the moment. I have the love because I know how powerful that is. And I know
mm,
how, if I am that way, it will reflect back. And I'm not doing it for it to reflect back, but I know the power. And so
yeah.
when I was listening to these classes that he was teaching, and I was thinking, wow, it's about living in the present moment and
Mm,
erasing the past, like, because there's no past. It's all right now. And that's
mm.
kind of how I mean, the girls, my daughters, they're like, well, I thought you were mad at me, or I thought I got in trouble. I'm like, honey, that was like an hour ago. I don't live like that. I live in
Yeah.
right now in love and where we are right now.
Yeah.
But I've really learned how to, I think in my relationship, because it made me feel like, wow, that's kind of boring. All these, I don't have
No,
it.
I mean, really, no, I mean, thank God, and that's just so, I mean, that's so beautiful. And that's so beautiful that you do that. And, you know, not, I mean, some people like to keep things interesting and like drama. I mean, that's kind of the human way, you know, and it's not, I'm not
Right.
like nothing against a little drama. I used to joke with my teacher about, yeah, you know, I love a little drama here and there, you know, it's kind
Right.
of keeps,
It's
you know,
excitement.
it's excitement, keeps things interesting, I suppose. But yeah, and I mean, that's a beautiful gift that you get to experience it. And I think that that's a place where a lot of people would like to be in relationships. I also think that just because someone isn't experiencing that in a relationship doesn't mean that they don't have a good healthy relationship. It just means
Right.
there's work that's being done, you know, and
Right.
it could be that you're in a different place in your life and where you are in your particular soul's journey, and it is what it is. And you know, some people are in a different place of healing or working with generational patterns, and you know, doing good work, or more that they come because they want to love better, they want to love
Right.
more, they want
Right.
to experience more generosity and more depth and more kindness. You know, if anything, if any of this, anything I've ever done in my life, I mean, I'd say it's all been amazing, beautiful work and beautiful explorations. And at the end of the day, you know, if somebody was like, well, what did, you know, what's the overall impact? And there's all these beautiful things I can say, but really, like, it's made me a kinder person,
Oh, right.
you know,
Uh-huh.
and able to love better, love more, let people be who they are.
Yes. Right.
Um, you know, because we're here for such a short time. We're here for
Right.
a blip, you know. So whatever,
How do
I
you
mean, that's
see
the way I
that? Do
see
you
it.
see going, do you believe in like your soul passes away, your body, this is just our little meat suit. Do you go instantly, like I've been listening to a few people that because that fascinates me, because a lot of people, say there's, because we have mediums that can bring in the dead people. So you can have
Yeah.
those relationships. So there is that. But do you believe that that's part of their soul, and their souls, like we talked earlier about the other timelines, could be in another body right away, and they're starting a new life to continue on the journey of the learning that they need to do to
Yeah.
open their soul, or to um
You know, that's a really good question. I have to be honest and say I don't know that I spend a lot of time thinking about it.
okay,
Mostly because I don't know.
right,
That's the
yeah,
truth. Like
and
I
who
really
does
don't know.
no,
I
I
mean,
mean, yeah,
and none of us do.
exactly.
But so what I think I'd rather share with you is is this idea that I have that I'm like, oh, this would be really cool if.
Okay, good.
And that is, have you ever seen, there's a film, if you've never seen it, I swear to God, it's such a interesting film. It's really old and kind of obscure, but it's called Photographing Fairies.
No.
Okay. I mean, I'm
Photographic
assuming you
fairies.
can find it somewhere. I want to say like I might have found it in Prime or something, or maybe Netflix. I don't know, but you might take some searching.
Okay.
I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but just talk about like magical stuff. Like I'm super into the magical fairy stuff. Like I just think the little kid in me is just like, yeah, I'll take
Yeah.
more of that. Um, Without giving away the entire film and the story, essentially there's a scene where I mean, this guy's wife dies at the very beginning of this film. There's a whole connection, you know, throughout the film to this particular fairy realm. There's these kids that find these fairies, a specific tree, but essentially it's like this other realm that they live in. And this guy is actually able to connect to the energy. Most adults can't,
Hmm.
but he connects into the realm. And then somewhere through this connection to this magic and this fairy realm, towards the end, he figures out he figures out dreaming. Like there's this whole element to dreaming that he discovers, the way that I see it. And at the end, there's a place where he dies, and when he wakes up, he dies, and as soon as he wakes up and he's back in the scene with his wife who had died at the beginning of the film.
Okay.
But essentially it's almost like he directed where he went in like, the beginning. We're circling back to the very beginning where I talked about all things existing at once, like these
Right.
particular scenes and possibilities. It's like he was able to, as soon as he died physically, he was able to wake up in whatever realm he wanted to. His
Okay.
consciousness just sort of traveled to that realm or that scene and on the timeline. And essentially he was able to save his wife. His wife like died, like slipped down sort of in a cavern. They were in some
Hmm.
mountainous area, and he was actually in this scene, he actually saved her and then started that life from that
Okay.
point.
Got it. Huh.
Yeah. I think that's really fun
Mm-hmm.
to imagine that, like, when I die, I actually have a choice, like, consciously of where I want to go, like, where I want to go on the timeline. That
Right.
there's a possibility that, um, the more alert, awake, more consciousness that I gain here, that I
Mm-hmm.
can actually take that consciousness into the next life or
Right.
into whatever that next place or realm is, that I
Mm-hmm.
actually get to take it there, wherever my soul decides to go next.
Right.
um
But do you feel like the soul is, like you came into this body at this level and you're growing and learning, you're becoming, more conscious of your
oh, sure.
consciousness, and now
Yeah.
you leave this realm and at the
Yeah.
higher level and you continue expanding, or do you ever go
Yeah, I mean,
below?
again, I don't know that I look at it as, I don't know if I look at it so much as like higher, in terms of lower or higher, but I look at it in terms of awakening and remembering.
Okay.
Like, I come here to do the remembering, and can collect this, continue to remember, wisdom from these other lifetimes here to do whatever work I am to do here, and then but I get to take that remembering with me into the next, wherever that
Right.
is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny that I talk high and low and you don't. You talk. Isn't that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a reoccurring. Yeah, I love that. That's such a great, because I've done past life regressions where I can I get the sometimes I see I've heard people say you'll get, like, if I was looking at 5 lives, there's a common theme of this life.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like there's been so many lives, but the ones that I really keyed in on are the ones that are I can there's a correlation of those lives and what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Does
yeah.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's a really beautiful invocation. I taught Michelle this. So you can see it that way, where you have these different lives where you're living and doing the work that you're doing, sharing your gifts or wisdom or whatever that is. And there's a way that you can call into those lives here and call that energy back to yourself in
Okay,
this life, in this
let's
moment.
do it.
You want to try it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we say it 3 times. It's the same invocation, but you say it 3 times. Well, that's the way that I do it anyway.
Okay.
Okay. So you say I, and then state your full name.
I, Ashley Goner,
Call myself to myself
call myself to myself
through all realms and lifetimes,
through all realms and lifetimes,
timelines and dimensions.
timelines and dimensions.
I state your full name.
I, Ashley Goner,
Call myself to myself
call myself to myself
through all realms and lifetimes,
through all realms and lifetimes,
timelines and dimensions.
timelines and dimensions.
I state your full name.
I, Ashley Goner,
Call myself to myself
call myself to myself
through all realms and lifetimes,
through all realms and lifetimes,
timelines and dimensions.
timelines and dimensions.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Yeah. Hmm.
And would you say to, when you do that, would I do that more often?
Yeah, I mean, I would do it anytime you feel like you need to gather yourself. Yeah,
Okay.
gather. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I've done like a 30-day practice where I say that every day.
Okay. In groups of three.
Mm-hmm. I like to do it. I like to do it 3 times. Yeah, three's just the magic number for some reason.
What do you do? Like,
Yeah,
what's your morning? What do you do? Like, you have rituals and routines that you
yeah,
do to get your energy into where you love your energy?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I do kind of basic stuff. I get out in nature quite a bit. You know, I walk almost every day in nature first thing in the morning. I do breath work. I actually really like doing Wim Hof breath. That's one of my favorites. We do that a lot in the embodiment realm. We call it in the realm of like looking through the lens of feminine and masculine. It's a what he would call a very masculine breath technique, but I love it because it helps me oxygenate my brain, my body. It helps open my lungs. It helps me, wake up essentially,
Right.
and gets me started in a place where it's just no thought, no thought starting the day like that. Um, my practice changes every day. I don't do the same thing every day. Sometimes it is embodiment practice. Sometimes it's, in the realm of feminine embodiment, turning on some music. If it's not a few songs, it's at least one song, connecting to what feels good in my body, what feels pleasurable. Using breath, using sound, using movement. So less words. Sometimes it might look like, touching what's underneath, like what's happening underneath, what's happening underneath my heart, like what I'm feeling, sensing, that's not being expressed, and then I express that through sound and movement. Sometimes expression of feeling and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if it's anger, I might get out my plastic Nerf bat and a pillow and go to town. It's just
Oh,
a but it's a way of, again, back into this realm of energy. It's a way of moving energy. It's just different ways, if we're using it as a tool, or different ways to move energy, because all the feelings and emotions are really just energy asking to
right.
move. Yeah.
Right.
So those are some of my practices. I also, in the realm of ceremony, I do quite a bit of ceremony. I have certain medicines I work with, and one in
Like
particular
what?
is
What medicine?
cacao. I
Cacao?
work a lot with cacao medicine. Yeah, the teacher I worked with worked mostly with cacao, and then also a tobacco tea medicine. And so I come in here often. This is my space where I do my calls, but also my altar, and where I sit sometimes, and I do rattling, and I do singing, and just sit with spirit in my own way. Um, and those are, yeah, probably a few. There's probably more, but they kind of change. They
Hmm.
change every day depending on what I need. And there's a few different other breathing techniques that I like to use that help me connect in a different way.
Are
Yeah.
you always learning and going, like taking classes and reading? And is that, or are you just in
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah, I've always been in some kind of training or some kind of program pretty much on a regular basis. I mean, for the last 7 years, I've was pretty consistently in programs, training, assisting with John Wineland, also Kendra Kunav, and feminine embodiment. And then I consistently have been working with a teacher named Teo Alfaro the last 3-4 years now, and also teach with him as well. But always in some kind of training for sure. I think I've been I actually said at one point where I was like, okay, you gotta stop training and actually get out in the world and start
And
teaching.
doing it.
So in doing it, yeah, it can get really easy. It can get easy to hide being a student.
Right. Do you,
Yeah.
you have new things that are coming up? Can you share? Um, I wrote them down. The threshold, the untamed retreat, and how
Yeah.
can I? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for now, I have it would two other facilitators, Ali Kegley Cole and Nicolette Ruthier, and I are going to be offering a workshop. It's a feminine embodiment workshop that'll also um, involve, ritual and ceremony. That will be in the fall, in October. We're actually still landing on a location. We had one, and so things change. So we're working on that right now. but that's the Untamed that will be in October of this year. And then the Threshold program is a completely different realm. That's more the energetic capacity work with the teacher Teo Alfaro and also another teacher Amy Harris. And that will be beginning in the fall. At the end of October it starts. We kick off with a retreat in November. And yeah, and right now the best way to find me is my email, kinney.erin@gmail.com, and that's kinney.erin@gmail.com. Yeah.
And to get so they can get appointments to do it through Zoom, like that's where you do your
To
appointments. You can do it on Zoom.
Yeah, well, if it's more one-on-one sessions, or if it's working one-on-one, yeah, that's how I do my sessions, and they could connect with me via email.
Okay.
That way, if they're interested or just wanting to connect to find out a little bit more about what we were talking about today, I'm also happy just to connect and have a call and share. And then I still work in the realm with John and feminine embodiment. We have it planned for next year what's going to be happening. We're closing out our program EWRI, which is the Embodied Women's Relationship Immersion, and we're closing that out. We have our last retreat in Mexico in June that we're really excited about.
Oh, fun. Coming up like
Yeah.
this next month.
Yeah, in June. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
and
It's
explain that to me too. What you would do if I was going to go to that. What would be my who's drawn to that retreat?
Yeah, I think anyone who is wanting to connect more, to connect more with their heart, and what does that actually mean to be in your body and to be in your heart? Just someone who's wanting to connect with that language, someone who is wanting more from life, someone who's wanting more in relationships, someone who's wanting to love better. But really, I will say that most of the women that are attracted to that program are wanting a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship. And I think 9 times out of 10, part of at least what I discovered was I was like, oh, this actually starts with the relationship with myself,
Right.
in my own heart. And what does it mean to be in that conversation with
Mm-hmm.
my, like, what feels good to me? What is pleasure like in my body? What is my definition of pleasure? How can I stretch and push the edges of who I know myself to be? We work in this realm of what we call feminine range. So we work with archetypes, play in the realm of what is it like to embody your queen? What is it like to embody your witchy self, your medicine woman, your sorceress? What is it like to embody seductress? But trying on, we'll say, like, costumes, but really
Right.
finding actually like how does that move through you? Like, how does that express through you in particular? Not how we imagine pleasure to be or to look like. There's so much in our culture and in media about, as women, like what it's supposed to look like and feel like,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't, most don't have a relationship with it and what it actually means, in ourselves, to have such a deep relationship. We're not concerned about what it looks like or
Right.
how it appears, so getting to explore the range and the edges of who we think we are, and hopefully discover that we're more than that.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you do such amazing, beautiful work. And just to think that you're opening my eyes to so much. It was so fun getting to know you and meeting you, and know that it, I think it opened something inside of me. I can't explain it, but it opened something inside of me, learning the things that you are so passionate about and what your gifts are. It's beautiful. Thank you,
Oh,
Erin.
thank you. Yeah, it was a beautiful winding road too of a conversation of just getting to share all those pieces. So thank you. It's really been a
Oh,
pleasure to connect with you.
yes, thank you so much. And our paths will cross again. Thank
Thank
you.
you.